Good morning. Welcome to the Wednesday, September 6th meeting of the Board of Franklin County Commissioners.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Present.
Commissioner Harris?
Present.
Chair Dickinson?
Present.
Commissioner Dunn?
Present.
Vice Chair Waymire?
Present.
Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Do we have any correspondence or organizational business today? No. Do we have any public comments today? All right. The consent agenda today consists of the minutes from our August 23rd meeting, tax change orders in the amount of $422.38, payroll in the amount of $1,326,324.94, and claim vouchers in the amount of $833,860.77. A motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Chair Dickinson?
Yes. All right, we just have a couple of items today. The first one is to consider the approval of rezoning application 2307, 2072, to rezone approximately 5 acres from the A1 Agriculture District to the RE Residential District. Pat?
Good morning, Commission. Yes, so this is a property that's roughly 3 or 5 miles to the east of Ottawa. It's a rezoning request for 5 acres. The family has a large chunk of land of 100 or so, 160 acres or a little bit more, and they've divided it into 4 equal sections for the siblings to all have their individual portion of an A1. What's left is a 5-acre portion with a home and septic and everything that's required for homestead. And they want to break that off. That way, if the family needs to sell that for cost of maybe the retirement home or whatnot that could possibly be in the future, they can sell that off without really impeding the agricultural land around it. Traffic's not going to change. We already have all the utilities. Basically, this is just kind of organizing the family for future premises. We had no issues with it at the Planning Commission and had a unanimous recommendation of approval, as with staff as well.
All right, any questions or comments? Otherwise, an affirmative motion would be, I make a motion to approve rezoning application 2307-2072 to rezone approximately 5 acres from the A1 Agricultural District to the RE Residential District and Estate, and to amend the official county zoning map accordingly.
Motion to approve. Oh, second.
Second, whichever.
Want to take a pick?
We got both,
Take your
one way or
pick.
the other.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Chair Dickinson?
Yes. And then the second one is approval of amendments to the Franklin County zoning regulations, Article 2, Section 2-101, Article 3, Section 3-301, Article 4, Section 4-201, Article 5, Section 5-201, Article 6, Section 6-201, and Article 26, Section 26-201 of the Franklin County zoning regulations.
Okay, I know that was a mouthful and a lot of numbers and sections, articles. First of all, I want to start off with commending our Planning Commission. We had a study session on this, and we went point by point of every aspect of how to create a good resolution for you guys. We think we really hit all the key items. There were some disagreements, but we're all able to bring our disagreements to a middle ground to make this really work for what we think would be best for the community. It's going to serve us a lot of positive outlook for future development within families being able to consolidate and bring the older individuals closer to home so that they don't necessarily have to go to a retirement home, which are already overfilled and understaffed. And then also the younger generation will have the opportunity to potentially stick around home, try and build something small until they can go off into the sunset and start their lives fully. It is going to help with our low-income situation where we already have a dire need for housing. So we are trying to help it without fully adding a new house or residence to the property. So what this is basically an accessory dwelling is a secondary home for, usually it's 1 to 2 people. It ties in all of our utilities to the existing house that is on the premise. We're still sticking with 1 driveway. We're keeping the home roughly 75 feet from the primary structure or a maximum of 75 feet. And the premise to that is if one of these, a homeowner or a landowner decides to make it into an Airbnb, they're going to deal with the problems that come with having an Airbnb because they're going to be so close. So if somebody has a rager and they're going to be the ones there listening to it. So we really think that alone will keep these things from being something that becomes widespread in the community, keeping short-term leasing to a minimal. The parameters of which we're going to be building these will be a minimal of 500 feet, 500 feet to 1,200 square feet of livable space. We're going to allow 2 bedrooms, and then we will allow an attached 24 by 24 garage. That's for the individual living there. And if they need somebody to stay on premise, such as like a home nurse or home health nurse or whatnot, they would have a place to park as well. Like I said, we'll be able to utilize the existing septic. Now, with that, because we're adding bedrooms, we would have to go in. If the system's already maxed out by the primary structure, then we'll add on and make those differences at the environmental health determination, utilizing the same critiques that we already do for anybody that is putting an add-on to their house as it is. Let's see. There is one thing that we took away from the regulations, that is removing temporary hardship mobile homes as a temporary ut. The reason we did this is we've never been able to enforce the removal of these homes. We have multiple properties where a mobile home got put onto the property, and then that individual may or may not have passed away or perished or moved, but the home stayed and it became a full-time rental at that point, and we had no way to track it. If we're not physically knocking on the door, to go check to see if the same person that started living there when we gave them the temporary use permit is still there, then we just don't know. And so I've been coming around finding multiple properties where it's questionable, but we don't have any proof that that's not who it was that started and everything to that retrospect. This just is making it so that we're adding a primary structure, or a permanent structure onto the property, and then we don't have to try and enforce something that's basically unenforceable. Most of the building portion of the structure itself it's all going to meet the same standards as any other construction that goes on in Franklin County under the ICC standards. We won't be adding any extra driveways. We'll utilize the same driveway, so that pretty much takes any issues from Public Works, I believe, so that they have to stay in the premises of the area. We're not adding any more traffic to the roads is the ultimate goal. I think I've pretty much hit all of the main portions of this. And if you guys have anything specific that you want to see changed or added, I'm more than happy to work with you guys to do so.
It says you can temporarily use camping trailers or RVs.
But it doesn't say what temporary is.
So temporary is typically when you, and we can define
Or
that.
how long temporary?
It's-
Because people are gonna go, well, this is only for 2 years.
Right. So for, right now, we allow in our zoning regulations to use a camper for the completion of the project. So if somebody's needing to utilize a camper as a temporary use until the completion or final occupancy of the construction, then that's when you you basically unplug or undo the camper so that you can move into your home. But that's,
By special use?
it's temporary use. It's always been a temporary use. Because special use kind of sticks, when we utilize special use permits, that's forever. These are more of a temporary use, and they have to get a $5,000, well, in this case, they don't. If you're utilizing like an existing home, there's bonds that are associated with it to make it a little more difficult. In this case, we just go make sure they've pulled off the sewer. You know, most people charge their campers in the off seasons anyways, so it's kind of just, you assume that they're gonna leave the camper and go to their new residence, and so that's the whole premise of it. And we allow that for construction of new homes as well. That's something.
This dwelling piggyback off the existing electrical service, or would it have a separate electrical?
That's actually going to be a utility question. I believe that in some cases, depending on how it's set up, is their panel even feasibly able to do that, and will Evergy allow it? I think if they're under Four Rivers, yes, it'll all come off the main panel because they strictly put them on the poles, and then they can feed multiple dwellings. I think Evergy might be a little different. It just depends on what the utility decides upon on that. And that goes for water too. I believe the water districts have different sets of rules. Different boards have come up with different ordinances within those water districts. I believe some water districts will allow you to tap on and tee off to supply both dwellings with 1 meter, but I believe other water districts potentially will make you buy a whole nother meter for the secondary dwelling. And that's something I'm gonna get with the water districts and find out if we can't get something more uniformed around the water districts to provide for these. Maybe if they could all allow for the secondary dwelling. But the original meter was engineered for, and the premise is that the house that they request has an X amount of water that they're using, and so the engineer has done all the numbers for that. If you just all of a sudden put another home on that line, you may be dropping the volume for people down the line, and it could, so that's why we need to get with the water district and
I know
figure out
my water district wouldn't allow it at one time, I don't know about now, serving 2 houses.
right, and that may be just the cost of doing business is getting a secondary meter or approval for a secondary meter.
Are we gonna, maybe that might be a part of what we're gonna have to have them do is get,
That may, if the water district requires it, then that's what the rules are. We don't really control how they conduct business.
Just like building a new house, you're gonna have them verify that they can
Yes,
comply with sanitation codes, they can get water, and they can get
absolutely.
power.
I mean, we're in, although it is an accessory dwelling, we are building another home on the premises. So they're gonna have to go through the same process as the first one. It's just a much smaller footprint, if you will.
Once the utility gets to the home, you'll verify the work's done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Porting inside, but up to the home, that's
Correct.
utilities.
Yes.
any other questions or comments?
Sounds well thought out, like a good kind of blend of, landowner having the right to do with, somewhat what they wish of, their own property, and then also protecting the interest of the neighbors and the community as a whole, so.
Yeah, and I will say that
Like
every
a
other
well-thought-out policy.
district or zoned county also has similar provisions as we're providing. So we were able to kind of take theirs into context and then develop something of our own to really hone in on what we want this community to look like.
We didn't talk about specifics, but we did talk about at one of our meetings that we did want you to go forward with this. And
Right.
yeah, it sounds like there's been a lot of good thought into it. If there is no other questions or comments, and all of these regulations, even though there's lots of them, they all pertain to accessory dwelling units. I'm not going to read the whole thing again, all the articles in the sections, but it would be, I make a motion to approve the amendments of the Franklin County zoning regulations as presented, and which include amendments to accessory dwelling units.
Motion approved.
Second.
Commissioner Dunn,
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire,
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre,
Yeah, I'm gonna vote yes because I feel that our planning board, I've been to some of their meetings and I know they have a lot of questions. And so I feel pretty confident that they picked it. I vote yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Chair Dickinson.
And I vote yes, thank you.
And to Don's point, we did spend about, I'd say we put 4 hours of just discussion, point after point. So you're absolutely correct. I can't say enough about how highly they're working together. They looked at every aspect. It was a really good study session, and I hope that we can continue that trend on our board. So, thank you guys.
One question for you. Are you Downa member?
We are. So
In what area of the county does that person need to be?
honestly, we can, anywhere in the jurisdiction, we can accept, and we're going to bring you guys, we have some applicants that
Okay, good,
we've
good.
received from different portions, but the western half of the county is probably where we're struggling the most to find constituents. And then we have 2 openings for the Board of Zoning, and we also have applicants for both of those positions as well. So we'll be bringing those to you guys, I believe, or I'll be working with Derek on that to get something present.
I think like anything we do, I mean, certainly it will be their decision. We just want to make sure these folks have the ability to be objective and representative of all the citizens, not just particular groups.
So.
All right, thank you. All right. Well, that concludes our business, so we'll move on to staff reports. Derek, what you got?
Yeah, I don't have much today. Just want to commend Pat. He talks a lot about the planning commission and for good reason, but Pat's put a lot of work into the planning commissioners. Walrod obviously far preceded me, so I don't know what he did earlier in his career, but Pat's put more time and effort into helping the planning commissioners than any planning director I've had. So appreciate that, and I think it's starting to pay off for him. So, Diane, that's really all I have today.
All right. And are you done, Pat? Anything else? All right, Paul Bean.
Morning, Commissioners. A couple of things. One, I get asked an awful lot about what's happening out of Proximity Park, and recently there was some gravel put out there and some tractors moving around, and it turns out that the City of Ottawa entered into a contract with Evergy. I think most of you know this, but I wanted the public to know. City of Ottawa entered into a contract with Evergy to use some of that space for staging for some construction and improvements that Evergy's doing somewhere in the region. So if people go out there and they see some gravel down and some stuff sitting on Proximity Park, that's what that is. It's an agreement that the city entered into. We had a really good meeting last night in Wellsville. I kind of facilitated a Wellsville Chamber of Strategic Planning session. We had over 30 people there, so it was well attended. Great conversation, trying to just help that organization continue to move forward. They've made some progress the last couple of years, but we all know that Wellsville's going to grow a lot, and a lot of things are happening up there right now, and I think there's a definitive role for the chamber. And so the community's kind of thinking through what that role is and how they partner. So I thought it was a really good meeting last night. Then the last thing is I just sent out my first notice this morning that Franklin County Career Day is November 9th. And so we'll have all the juniors from all the high schools in the county coming to Ottawa High. And so we're seeking interested businesses and schools and organizations that would like to participate in that event and promote what they're doing to our students. We're going to do a couple of new things this year. One, and I think Ryland Miller is going to be on point for this part, but we're going to encourage not-for-profits to show up and kind of help these students understand the roles that they can play as volunteers in their community and the different agencies that are out there, and maybe even plug into one of them right now while they're in high school. And then the other piece is we're going to try this. We'll see how it goes, but we'll stay there over the lunch hour and open that up for parents and adults to come that are interested in learning more about what jobs and industry and opportunities exist in our county. So we're going to feed people donuts and coffee and juice in the morning, and then we'll feed them lunch. And there's no cost to any of the participants for that, but we're hoping for a good turnout. But real proud of all the school districts, and their participation in this is phenomenal. So I haven't got a number yet. I'll report that back, how many juniors this will be, but it'll be a lot of good things going on November 9th. So that's all I've got, unless you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff left, so Dustin, anything for you? All right. David Lee.
Okay, so the chip seal project is mostly done. They've got to come back and take care of a couple of small areas, but overall, we've been fairly happy with the actual product that's been put down. We did refer a few folks with broken windshields onto the contractor to take care of. We've had some folks a little upset with dust and traffic control issues. The dust is something that is part of using this particular product. The windshields is another byproduct of that material. But overall, I think it's gone fairly smoothly.
Traffic control concerns on mainly the old 59, since we're redoing that one this year, or is it all over?
It's all over.
Yeah.
They the first day out, they didn't have traffic control set up whenever they started putting down the material right in front of a school. Poor choice. We've had some other issues with signage, letting folks know that that work is ahead. Some of those things.
Imagine that's difficult because it's a moving.
It is,
site,
but
you got to at least attempt to. doesn't
a
sound
little more effort on their part would have gone a long way. So what we'll do is we'll tighten up some things in our specs to address that, and then in our pre-con meeting that we have each year, we talk about it. We will emphasize it next year.
Is this a different company?
Nope, same company.
Ah, okay.
And
But-
full disclosure, and I've let David know this, but I got several complaints about the project this time, which I have not gotten historically, and they all centered on lack of notice. So that's something David and I will work on and work with the contractor on, but just a way to let folks know that this is coming, and signage as well, but just so they're prepared.
They not have the staff to sign it correctly? You think, or?
I think that they struggle with the same things that we all do. I think they have some new folks. I think that they've got a lot of projects, so they tend to spread their people out. So I don't think it's just one thing, but certainly we have higher expectations, and they can adhere to those just like they do everywhere else. And so we will emphasize those things more strongly next year. They are responsive whenever we do call things to their attention. It's just part of the deal, I think. So we'll do a little better next year. Hopefully prices come down and we can switch back to the other product, but barring that, we're probably going to be using this particular product.
Well, and if people slow down just a little bit.
Well, one of the comments I got is, why are you pouring gravel on my perfectly good road? And so I'm not sure that they
Understand the process.
they don't understand the process, and it's hard to look ahead a month or two and understand what it's going to look like, what the roads are going to be like when it's dusty and whatnot now. So, but it'll be fine. I think that, you know, they applied it when it was really hot, which is good. It helps the chips seep better into the emulsion. So I think we're going to end up with a good product. The road already looks better than it did prior. And so I'm pretty happy with overall the results. There's always, in any construction project, there's always things that you would like to be a little bit better. And we will definitely work on those things.
So every year, obviously, we put it out, and usually it's the same person, but it's not always the same contractor. And then once they get the contract, they begin stockpiling material. And I guess that's another variable and a large one, and it depends on which material we select. Would we be better off to go ahead and buy the material ourselves and stockpile it, where we could kind of remove that variable? And then, I mean, that would open up the first half of the calendar, really, because spring or early summer is not so much an option for them, especially if we use the expanded shale or the trap rock.
Yeah, no, we can look into that. We will, you know, even though we bid earlier this year, in fact, I think I had it on maybe your very first January meeting. By the time that the bid date rolls around, we are already, I found out this year that we're already at the end of the line. Folks are bidding earlier and earlier, and KDOT, which does a lot of chip seal work, the way their calendar works, they're able to get, you know, in the front of the line there. So I think there are some things that we can do. Certainly, if we look into acquiring the material up front, that might be a benefit. I'll certainly look into that and study that and bring that recommendation back to you.
Do we have storage capacity?
There are some places on our site, excuse me, and other places around the county that we could stockpile, I think. We can figure that one out.
All right, well, thank you.
I have one more thing. You know, every year we apply to these, KDOT's got a couple of different bridge programs. Every year we apply, you know, every 2, 3, 4 years we get selected. I'm pretty sure that I told you this year that we were going to go through the exercise just to do it. But based on, you know, the fact that we have one bridge under construction right now that's funded through KDOT, and the fact that we just got up to $1.5 million in the cost share, that I really thought that there was no chance of us getting selected this time around, but I was wrong.
Yeah.
We are one of, so KDOT has 2 different bridge programs. And they selected a total of 35 projects out of 176 applications. So we're one of those 35. They selected our Texas Road Bridge to be replaced, which is just south of Sand Creek. And they're going to give us $1 million to make that happen. So, yeah, they received 176 applications worth $162.4 million. And we were one of the 35 projects that were selected, and for a total of $42.3 million is what they're allotting in those 35 projects. So pretty happy about that. I've already reached out to CFS, and we'll be bringing a contract for you here pretty soon to get them started on the survey and design and all those things. But I fully expect that in KDOT's fiscal year 2025, which starts in July of next year, that we should be ready to go to bid.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's another $1 million. It's coming back to this community, which is a big deal.
State has more bridge money right now. I think
do,
They
but-
came up with some more, but still, yeah, that's awesome.
176 applications, and they selected 35, and we were one of them. That's, we're very fortunate.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
That's all I've got.
Awesome. All right, Janet, nothing for you? All right, we'll start with commissioner comments.
Apologize, I didn't bring the sheet from Wellsville meeting the other night. Had a kind of things on their deal, but I can kind of visually a little of it. They are applying for $5 million bonding for infrastructure. And that was the biggest part of the whole. There was and they had their short budget hearing right before, and it was approved. And they had quite a few people there, but it really went pretty well. And if anybody wants to see it, I stopped by her last night before Paul's meeting and took a picture. They pretty well got the structure up and the rafters and everything on the ambulance up there, so anybody wants to look at it. Of course, it's sat there for quite a while, setting for the concrete, but they're coming right along on it now. And they've got the new street in there, and it's not couldn't go completely around and hook in, but you still can get on the new street and go right up to the police department and the ambulance there now. And I went to the meeting Paul put on last night, and I think it was very, very beneficial that it got a lot of people together that normally don't get together. There was the school was there, the city representation was there. I was there from the county. COFO was there. He gave a very good presentation on things that they can offer the city of Wellsville at a discount, their businesses and so forth, to help promote more membership and so forth. And I think people didn't really hook to that until he gave a good conversation of possibilities of working through COFO and do more advertising. And COFO working with them to get a little more cost on it. I know he said, I forget now how many businesses they do, and only one of them is out of the city of Wellsville. So that's when he made the point to you that it's there to offer and they can do it. And 70 other businesses do it, but only one. So maybe that will attract his presentation up there. With a very good meeting, very well attended. The rehab center up there provided the meal and everything. Good food, good conversation, and I think a lot of questions asked and a lot of ideas thrown out there. And I think it's something that I know a lot of communities wish they had somebody like Paul to facilitate and work with. I mean, the chamber, it would have been tough for them to do it on their own, and promote it on their own. The where you have another economic development moving in that represents, doesn't mean the chamber doesn't represent the city, but it's more of the overall view of it. And I think it went very well. So that's all I got.
All right, anything from you?
I don't know anything.
A couple weeks ago, of course, the Advent Health came in to discuss how the sales taxes were being used to support the hospital. And from that, a number of questions came up, and they requested some time to go back, gather information, and then come back to us. True to their word, they did put together things that we asked for and answers to the questions. Obviously, it wouldn't be a productive use of time if they brought something that looks like this, plopped it down on the desk and said, okay, any questions, right? So instead, myself, Derek, Janet Peters, Dallas, the CEO, and their CFO got together. We were able to get this, crack it open, ask any questions. And that happened last week. The majority of this is the definitive agreement, and that's the document that was created by the hospital board at the time when they chose to affiliate with Advent. And I'll leave this with the clerk. Of course, she's, our custodian of our records and all that, and then it'll become a public record on file with her. From that point, at the meeting, it was a very, I would describe it as a very cordial meeting, and then kind of conversation broke out. 2 weeks ago, we discussed a lot about several instances. I brought up several instances where members in our community had bad experiences. Since then, I've had 37 folks reach out to me to share their frustrations, and most of those had a story as well to share. There were common issues, especially with scheduling, billing, and general communication. And we were able to sit down and share those with the folks in the hospital. And it was very helpful to be able to cite instances. So to everybody who took the time to share a story, I appreciate it, and it was productive. We also continued the conversation about charitable care and ensuring the poor and uninsured are able to access care at the hospital. The CFO did share several ways that weren't brought up at the meeting a few weeks ago, where those folks do have a couple more options to get into the hospital, but did acknowledge there's still a small number of folks who either unable or unwilling to utilize those services and had to seek care outside the community. So from that conversation we had with them, two things were proposed. First would be to have a single point of contact locally where folks who are having issues with the hospital system and not able to seek a resolution or receive a resolution through their kind of normal avenues that, the corporation set up. There's somebody local that can assist them with that in the community. So this would be particularly helpful for things like billing and scheduling and, communication, and you'll be able to get some personal assistance. And then the second thing is that the sales tax dollars be separated from their financial assistance program that we understand, we know is a requirement of the federal government, and in some ways it could be considered a cost of doing business. And instead a fund is created where the community members, especially the poor and uninsured, would be able to use that money, and it would guarantee, two things, that all folks are able to access the hospital. It'd be a kind of a fail-proof mechanism for them to get in, as long as that fund has the resources available. And it would also be a level of service above what is standard in their health system. We have a community that's kicking in more than most communities do, and this would be something that ensures that they, in this way, are able to receive services to the community that's above what is standard. They agreed to take these items back to the board and then come back to us at a future meeting. I think Janet mentioned it several times, so I'm going to mention it. Of course, the hospital is governed by the hospital board, and she asked several times for anyone with concerns about the hospital to share those with their local board. So, if she felt the need to mention that several times, I'll share that. Of course, the hospital is controlled by the hospital boards, not us. And to their credit, they were very willing to sit down, very willing to talk, shared plenty of information, open and transparent, said all the right things. And for us not having any control over what they do, they were good to talk to us and give us the time. Any thoughts?
No, I think you pretty well covered it. It was an extensive meeting. We were in there for almost 2 hours, very productive, incredibly cordial. They didn't agree to anything, but they were certainly open-minded about particularly the charitable care and the fund being set up, so.
And to their credit, they wouldn't have been able to agree to these things anyways. They're policy decisions that would have to go back to their board, so.
That's exactly right, but gave us all of the info that we asked for. In terms of them coming back, we don't have a hard date set.
I
They
didn't
have
realize
to-
that you'd had this meeting, so
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
very
we
cool.
have to, they have to work through things on their end, but certainly, you know, perhaps yet this year they might come back just for some perspective, but we don't have anything.
Anything else, Cole?
Nope.
Well, thanks for taking point on that. I know you had a lot of questions, and it sounds like it was a good, productive meeting, so that's awesome. All right. 2 weeks ago, I went to a meeting here in this chamber with a room full of people on opioid awareness. It was a good meeting and a bad meeting. It was good information, but then from a lot of the information was pretty scary if you have kids or grandkids. You know, you think that Franklin County really truly is a great place to live, but Kansas, when you think of mental health, we rank number 51 out of 51. We rank at the bottom as far as adult mental health, and we rank 50 out of 51 for teenage mental health. And I think that all kind of fits together. There are 16 counties in the state that have higher than the national average, and Franklin County is one of them. A lot of the meeting was on fentanyl, and fentanyl is scary. Fentanyl, out of all of the different things that we've gone through, you know, heroin and cocaine and all of it. First, you might, you know, try it, and then you might be a weekend user, and then you might be a regular user, and then you might be an addict, and then you might have an accidental overdose. But fentanyl, you could take half a pill the first time and be dead. And that's why they have a campaign that says one pill kills. And you have to, if you have kids or grandkids, you have to educate them that, because they take a survey in the high schools and they're like, you know, 26% of them say, yeah, this might be a concern. So we need to educate our kids. And then, on the news yesterday, it said it was available now. Go get some Narcan. Keep it in your house. Everybody needs to have it available. I think, you know, at this point, it might be a little pricey, but go do it. And then just all of us need to just take the blinders off and realize that this is happening in our community. We all need to be aware. The hospital board was then 2 weeks ago on Thursday. I don't think we did anything necessarily new, just updates. Last Wednesday, I went to Topeka. We had our monthly KAC board along with our legislative policy meeting to kind of see what our emphases are gonna be as we move forward into the next legislative session. And then the last thing I think I'm gonna bring up is condolences. The commissioner chair from Woodston County was killed in a car accident on Monday. 72-year-old. Anyway, just that county is dealing with that. Otherwise, go Chiefs. And is there anything else that we need to bring before the board today? All right, then I will.
So move.
All right.
Second.
Thank you. All right, we're adjourned.